Welcome to Pesto Comics Audio Edition. This is the entry for February 5th, 2024. Being cool is overrated. It's time to retire guilty pleasures. Welcome back. It's been a pretty chaotic week for a number of reasons. I'm in a very privileged position to be able to speak out about comics and nonsense every week without having to worry about a lot of stuff. I hope my silly posts give you a bit of reprieve from all of it, even for a brief time. For the past 2 weeks, I've been predicting that escapism is making a comeback. In no way am I encouraging people to put their heads in the sand or give up, but at the same time, you need to be able to recharge and keep anxieties at bay. I'll do my best to assist in that. In the next 3 weeks, I'll have 3 different phases of 3 different campaigns that I'll be covering. Next week, the postmortem for Naked Kaiju Woman. The following week, the launch of From Parts Unknown number 2. And 3 weeks from now, we'll talk about fulfillment for Big Smoke Pulp. Lots of business to cover in the coming weeks, so for now, let's get silly and talk about guilty pleasures. But first, project updates. Naked Kaiju Woman Astounds. What an absolutely insane campaign this was. I was chatting with Clay Adams for something that I'll share with you once it's out there, and he mentioned that some campaigns just feel like they're on easy mode. This was very much the case with Naked Kaiju Woman. I was very lucky to have folks hyping it up on my behalf, like the unstoppable colorist and hype man, JP Jordan, but also all kinds of friends and fans giving it retweets and pushes wherever they could. I never felt burdened or as though I needed to do something extra to get the word out. It was finding people on its own, and it was truly an incredible feeling. Next week's going to be a lot of fun as we really dig into the numbers. I was able to finalize the pre-launch page for From Parts Unknown number 2 as soon as Naked Kaiju Woman funded, and even included it in the update thanking backers. As I'm reading this, I'm looking at colored pages for issue 2 fresh in my inbox. It's very comforting to know that these books are more or less ready to go. It's just a matter of running the campaigns for each entry. There's still a lot of risk involved in this. Daniel and JP have been paid for their amazing work, so I'm out of pocket until these campaigns fund. I feel like it's worth the risk to make sure that you're getting the full story. You don't have to risk your pledge guessing if you'll ever get to see the end. You will. Regardless, I'm taking that risk for you. I only ask a couple of things in return right now. Number 1, give it a follow on Kickstarter. And number 2, share it with your friends. Let them know to follow it as well. The more followers the pre-launch collects, the more people the campaign gets in front of once it launches. This was proven with Naked Kaiju Woman. I'm hoping to repeat that kind of success with From Parts Unknown. Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1 off to the printers. In 3 weeks, we'll go in depth on fulfilling Big Smoke Pulp. The book is at the printers, and I should be receiving them in a couple weeks. We'll finally be able to get it out to backers. Naked Kaiju Woman will be showing up a week or 2 after those books. I'll be in a constant fulfillment mode, as shortly after that, From Parts Unknown number 2 should be in the fulfillment stage. I'm still not feeling overwhelmed by it, surprisingly. I'm certainly testing the limits of that, though. That's where distractions come in. That's what guilty pleasures are meant for. What's your guilty pleasure? I hate this question when it comes to art. I get it. It's an icebreaker. It's meant to be fun and harmless, but the concept itself is frustrating. I'm not trying to be overly sensitive about things here. I don't think this is doing any damage in the question itself. It's the mindset behind it that bothers me. Unless what you're taking pleasure in is immoral in some way, I don't think you should feel any true guilt towards it. Notice I didn't even say illegal here. Social mores can change as to what's accepted or not, legally speaking, so I put no weight into it. What I'm trying to say here is if you enjoy something, you should shamelessly enjoy it. I know I'm being a bit ridiculous here. When people say they have a guilty pleasure, they're being a bit cheeky about it. If there was truly a guilt they felt, they wouldn't openly share it. And yet, I still think people feel a stigma for some of the things that they enjoy. I'm pretty open about things I like. Worse than that, if I really do enjoy something, I shout it from the rooftops. My friends and family get tired of hearing what I'm into because I really want other people to feel the same joy that I'm feeling. I'll be incessant about something if I really like it and I think it's worth someone's time. I wasn't always like this, though. My high school brain. Girls over comics. I've never really been in the dating scene. I've written about it before, but I've been with my high school sweetheart longer than I've been alive without her. However, for that brief period between puberty and meeting who would become the love of my life, I made sure to hide my first love, comics. I wasn't cool in high school, but I wasn't a huge nerd either. This was by design. I never tried too hard to fit in, and I never tried hard to stand out either. I strived to exist in the background. In fact, I'm not even in my high school yearbook, and I didn't take a graduation photo, so I'm not on the alumni walls of my high school either. If I had one traditional high school mission, It was to make sure that I didn't go to prom alone. I don't know why this was my primary focus over studying and everything else. Maybe it was growing up in an era of American Pie and similar teen movies. This was all I was concerned about. Not until a few months after I very awkwardly asked my now long-term partner to be my girlfriend did I decide to share my love of sequential storytelling. Fortunately, she didn't run screaming in the other direction, though I'm sure as I fill our storage unit with long box after long box, she may be regretting the decision. Chick rock, and eventually K-pop. As I grew more confident, I cared less and less about what people thought about how I spend my time. I went to an Avril Lavigne concert and I enjoyed the hell out of it. To be fair, this was the first SARS concert, the concert for Toronto that also had Sum 41, Our Lady Peace, Bare Naked Ladies, and The Tragically Hip. A pretty epic Canadian lineup. That continues through to today. I had a very unexpected stat in my Spotify Wrapped for 2024, as I apparently listen to more Dua Lipa songs than 99.98% of the planet. Houdini sounds so good on a decent sound system. I've also been to a BTS concert that I drove 10 hours to. Sure, it wasn't my idea initially, thank my wife for that, but I had such a good time that we bought tickets for the tour again in New Jersey and Toronto, before those were cancelled by the pandemic. I also enjoy a lot of songs by Taemin, Lisa, Jenny, and more. That's when I'm not listening to my country songs, which I was into way before it was cool, including early Taylor Swift, or Italian music like Giue, Anna, Irama, and Elisa, Capoplaza. I read all kinds of romance novels to go along with my usual diet of mystery and sci-fi. I'm happily first in line to check out the latest rom-com in theaters, when they bother to release those. One day, I'll do a post about the OC and how that was a surprisingly formative series in my life. These are just the things that are top of mind. I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff that some would say are too embarrassing to share, but I don't keep it a secret. I like what I like. The world is too interesting. Don't put yourself in a box. In a world where there is so much to enjoy, so much to consume, more amazing art than there's ever been before, I think it's crazy to define yourself in one way or another. As a millennial, I grew up in a time where that was almost a requirement to define yourself. It's pretty cringeworthy thinking back on it now. Most people grow out of high school definitions, but few actually leave that mindset. The things they enjoy define their personality. So if something doesn't fit in that box, they don't feel like they can enjoy it. This just makes you one-dimensional and boring, which is what you're trying to avoid by defining yourself in such a way. Don't put my writing in a box either. This is something I've been chafing against in my nascent writing career. Those of you who followed me know that I really don't stick to a genre. My hope is that my voice and my viewpoint shine through, regardless of the concept. If I'm doing it right, you know where it's coming from, whether it's a romance, a sci-fi, a noir, or a comedy. Don't get me wrong, I understand why these boxes exist. It's a shorthand. I use it both as a consumer and as a writer. If I go to the bookstore, which I do often, I scan all of it. But I start at the sci-fi shelf before I check everything else out. I start where I'm most likely to find what I'm looking for. I do the same when I'm selling my books. I probably overuse the term pulp as a catch-all. I make it very clear whether it's a sci-fi, a horror, or any other genre, but I don't want to be the sci-fi guy. It's not an original feeling. Every artist fights to break out of the box they've been put in. I'm trying to avoid it preemptively. It does make a lot of sense, though. There's a trust that's built. No one wants to hear Metallica play polka, but there's room to experiment. Look at this year's Grammy Album of the Year for evidence of that, even if that album wasn't my favorite. You don't have to like everything, but don't yuck people's yum. Nothing drives engagement like a pile-on for something that people enjoyed. Last week's target seems to be Amelia Perez, before the Star got themselves in trouble with some old tweets. I haven't watched it myself, and how it's being described sounds like something that I certainly wouldn't be into, but the amount of content this is generating with people crapping all over it is exhausting in its own way. This is a regular thing in comics, too. I get it. It's easy content. I've seen it myself as the odd time I decided to go negative. I've gotten all kinds of likes and reposts that I don't get on my most positive posts. Everyone is drawn to the negative, but that just means that someone on the other end of it is taking the hit, whether it's their art they've created or something they just enjoy. Sometimes they ask for it. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I feel like it's deserved, especially if the art is created in a disingenuous way. We've talked about comics that are put together simply to try to cash in on a trend, with A to Z covers and color palette swaps or half-baked ideas. Going back to my time in high school, there was a very clear example of this in the theaters: parody films. With the success of Scary Movie and Not Another Teen Movie, there was a glut of copycats. they almost always miss the point, as these two examples I provided seem to come out of actual respect or mild appreciation for the movies they picked on. Same goes for all the Twilight offshoots that spawned. It's Twilight, but with dogs. This is nothing new. They can even create something truly different, regardless of how artfully it might be done, like 50 Shades of Grey. As long as the artist behind it is actually trying to create art and not just cash in, I think it's worth giving a bit of grace, even if it's not for you. Be a beacon. I'm a big fan of Kevin Smith. Every time he's in town, I make sure to go see him with whatever he's bringing in. Nearly every time, he brings up one philosophy. It's easier to knock people down than to build them up. He chooses not to take the easy path. It's not always easy to live by. I'm pretty easily dragged into a good old pile-on myself. You can sometimes see evidence of this in the Instant Ink comic book podcast. If I get the opportunity to stop and think about it, like I do writing this newsletter, then I try to keep things as positive as possible. I'd rather tell you what's worth spending your time on than what to avoid. I'm not perfect. I certainly slip here and there, but I try my best. More importantly, I never feel guilty about the things that I enjoy. I'm going to keep liking what I like, and I think you should do the same. Just be you. Life's too short to be worried about what other people think you should like. Until next week. Coming up on the Substack. February 12th, Postmortem Naked Kaiju Woman, reviewing the 6th Pesto Comics campaign. And February 19th, Round 2 from Parts Unknown, Step Back into the Ring with Bruno and Pietro. And February 26th, Fun with Fulfillment, Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1, Part 2 of the Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1 Postmortem. And upcoming appearances. No changes here, so still waiting for word back on whether we're getting a table at TCAF. Same thing for Fan Expo Canada. And I'm still planning on attending Toronto Comic Con. Looks like I'll just be doing one day for that, so more than likely I'll be going on the Sunday just to go say hi, and I'll be around for a little while just to see what's going on. I'll also be at the Toronto Indie Authors Conference. Similar case here where I will be there for the first half of Saturday, and I'll be there all day Sunday. So if you happen to be there, I may be slipping out because I do have a Toronto FC game to be at that afternoon, so I'll be going to that, as I have season tickets, so I'm there every week, and I wouldn't miss a game, even if all things are looking like it might be a very rough game to sit through. And the big one is New York Comic Con. Again, tickets aren't released yet, so it's a big if, as I don't know if I'll actually be able to get in the doors, but chances are I should. I'm just going as an attendee, so we'll see how that all plays out. And the Pesto Comics release calendar. So here, there is so much to cover. So what I've actually done is I've created a spreadsheet that'll tell you where every project is when it will launch and what level of production or fulfillment things are in. So you can get a really good sense of that by going to the Substack. You'll find a link. If you click on the calendar, it'll bring you to it too. But the main thing is From Parts Unknown number 2 is launching on February 19th. And then on April 2nd, we'll be launching From Parts Unknown number 3. And May 14th, we'll launch From Parts Unknown number 4. So you can see the trend here. Usually it's about 3 weeks between campaigns before the next one launches. So if everything's going right, I'll have about 6 Kickstarters this year. So fingers crossed everything goes smooth and well. I think it should, because a lot of these comics are well into production. And then on the Instant Ink comic book podcast this week, we talked to PJ Curling. This is the first of 2 episodes that we have. PJ's a lot of fun. We really get into the whole wrestling talk. So if you're a pro wrestling fan, definitely check this one out. If you're not, it might be a little tougher to sit through, but I totally recommend checking it out. I think you'll have a lot of fun. But we really get into not just wrestling, but, indie comics, the usual thing. And the page we put together is really cool too. So definitely worth checking out. And it's part 1 of 2. So lots to talk about with PJ. And that's it for this week. I really appreciate you listening. I'm a little more muted this week in terms of just not really screaming into the mic. I'm doing this on the Wednesday, so I don't have the usual time and space that I have to really do retakes and be loud and all that kind of business. It's just a different situation in terms of recording. So I appreciate you listening. If you prefer this muted tone, let me know. I'll be more careful to whisper into the microphone like I feel like I'm doing now, rather than kind of yelling into it. I usually try to stand up a bit while I record these, where now I'm kind of sitting back and keeping the same tone throughout. Anyways, without talking too much about how I sound. Yeah, Naked Kaiju Woman, but very, very well. It was a great campaign. I'm so happy. I'm still kind of in disbelief on how well it went. Well over 600 people backing. We'll see how fulfillment goes. I'm very excited for that. Fortunately, I really enjoy that. So this is going to be a really cool, fun challenge to put all those packages together and shipped out. Yeah, and then with all the turmoil last week about potential tariffs and that, I was kind of worried that, maybe not the best time to be shipping things out of Canada. But it looks like we got a little bit of reprieve there. Hopefully nothing comes of it, and I can continue doing this because, again, with 6 campaigns planned this year, plus some indie author stuff planned, that would be pretty detrimental as a small micro business that I am right now. That'd be very tough to navigate. Again, if I'm even included, it's so unclear as to what counts and what doesn't. So who knows what that would look like. Anyways, I really appreciate you being here. We'll really get into the business stuff over the next 3 weeks. So if you enjoy these kind of topics where I just kind of pick a topic and riff on it, we'll certainly get back to that. So after these 3 weeks, I have 3 weeks of just talking about whatever. So it's going to be kind of like an on and off thing. Again, with so many campaigns coming to the end, I think we're going to see kind of a natural rhythm come out in how these posts go, that it'll be, a couple business ones and then a couple fun ones. I'm also very happy for those of you that are here every week, every Wednesday. I did put out a poll a long time ago saying if I should do these twice weekly so I could have, a business post and then a fun post. Everybody said just stick to 1 week. So here we are. Who knows? Maybe I'll throw a poll up in the future and see if people would like to revert to, a business stream and a regular stream. I don't know. We'll talk about that in the future. It could be worth it, but I'll save that for maybe closer to the spring. In the meantime, I want to say thank you again for listening. If you supported the previous campaign, I really appreciate it. And whether you did or didn't, I really appreciate your support on the next one. Even just giving it a follow ends up doing a lot for getting this campaign in front of a lot of people. If you're not going to support it, again, no, I'm not offended or anything like that. I appreciate you even giving it the follow, because that gets it higher up in the algorithm, and then it gets it in front of people who actually might be interested in backing the campaign. So, if you could do anything, give it a follow. And then if you're willing to share it with other folks, I would appreciate that a ton too. It's something that, frankly, I need to get a lot better at in sharing other people's campaigns. There's so many that I'm into, and I used to be a lot better about really sharing, like, I'm backing this, I'm backing that, and I am thinking of ways to incorporate that in my usual thing, even if it's maybe adding a bit here of, like, here's some campaigns I'm into. Maybe that's a section I'll add going forward. Anyways, I'm thinking out loud right now, and maybe there'll be some changes coming in the newsletter, but for now, I appreciate you being here for the version it's in right now. I really appreciate you. Have a great week. Hopefully things are a lot more stable and normal, although who knows with the way everything in the world is going. But just try to remember, this too shall pass. Though it feels like the world is collapsing in on itself at times, we're all still here in one way or another. So we'll come out on the other end of it. Just take it easy, and we'll talk next week.